My sister sent me a wedding gift spreadsheet that included a Tesla, then told me don't come when I missed 2 items, so I canceled the catering, the floral orders, and the entire wedding day. She sent me a wedding gift spreadsheet. No greeting, no pleasantries, just a Google sheet titled Final Gift Coordination. Listed inside a Tesla Model Y, a Rolex Daytona, a Hermes clutch, 2 designer accent chairs, a luxury espresso machine, a Baccarat crystal bar set, and my name already pre-assigned to 5 of them. 2 were marked available. I skipped those 2. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my sister. You missed 2. Don't show up. 2 minutes later, another ping from my mother. She deserves more. It's her big day. The audacity didn't surprise me. Not anymore. But something about that moment, the coldness, the calculation shifted something inside me. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I just opened my laptop, clicked into my financial dashboard, and began shutting the entire production down. Catering canceled, florist suspended, rentals revoked. They told me not to come, so I didn't. But I made sure my absence was more than just physical. Let me take you back. My name's Landon Rivers. I'm 36. I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm the kind of guy who gets called the stable one in every family conversation. I've worked in finance for over a decade. I don't have kids, don't have drama, and for the most part, I keep my life quiet and simple. I pay my taxes early, I tip well, I reply to emails the same day they're sent. I'm that guy. But being the stable one has a dark side. People stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as infrastructure. Skylar, my younger sister, 4 years my junior, was always the firework. Big dreams, big feelings, bigger expectations. In college, she changed her major 5 times, spent a semester reconnecting with herself in Bali, and later became a full-time lifestyle influencer on TikTok. You might have seen her. #myweddingmybrand. That was hers. She built her following on hyper-curated content engagement, ring reveals, luxury unboxings, detox juice routines filmed in 4K. She didn't just plan a wedding. She planned a campaign, and I was supposed to fund it, quietly. I'd been doing it for years. When she needed tuition help, I wired the funds. When she couldn't cover rent in LA, I fronted 3 months, no questions asked. When she floated the idea of a spiritual reset at a luxury retreat in Tulum, I pretended not to notice the $9,000 charge on my Amex. That was the pattern she dreamed I delivered. She asked, I absorbed. She spent, I stayed silent. Same went for Mom. After Dad left us and moved to Arizona, she fell apart. I was 26 and juggling 2 jobs, but I still managed to cover her mortgage when she fell behind. When her roof collapsed during a storm, I cut a check before the insurance even responded. She cried. She thanked me. Then she changed the subject, just like always. Gratitude in our family never lasted long. So when Skylar got engaged and began planning what she called a wedding, not a marriage, I knew what was coming. I helped book vendors, reviewed contracts, paid deposits, all in the background. She said she was too busy managing brand partnerships and engagement traction. Meanwhile, I was organizing the linens. I told myself it didn't matter. I had the money, I could afford it. But what I didn't realize was that every quiet yes was teaching them that I had no right to say no. Then came the spreadsheet. No context, no conversation, just a cold list of luxury items with names already assigned. 5 to me, 2 left blank, and after I skipped them, don't show up. I looked at those words and felt something unfamiliar. Not rage, not hurt, just stillness, like silence breaking in a room where no one noticed you'd been standing the whole time. That morning, I made espresso, poured 2 cups. My best friend Jordan came by. We'd known each other since college. He looked at me and said, "You good?" I handed him the sheet and said, "My sister sent me a bill for her wedding." He blinked. "Like an actual bill?" I nodded. 7 gifts, Tesla included. Jordan stirred his coffee and muttered, "If you were a bank, they'd at least say thank you." We didn't laugh. Not this time. Because it wasn't about the money. It was about the entitlement. The assumption that I'd fund her dream and disappear. That I'd swipe my card, absorb the blow, and show up smiling in the background while she twirled for the cameras. So I made a decision. She said don't show up, fine. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I was going to give her exactly what she wanted, a performance. Just not the kind she rehearsed. Before I walk you through how I turned a luxury wedding into a low-budget TikTok fail and why a single Google sheet ended a decade of silent sacrifice, I need to ask you something. Have you ever been the one who holds it all together? The one who gets labeled reliable, mature, emotionally grounded like it's a compliment. But really, it just means we'll dump everything on you because we know you won't break. If that's you, hit the like button, drop a comment, and tell me, when did you realize you were being used? And if you're ready for a story not about rage, but about resolve, about drawing boundaries and burning bridges with grace, then hit subscribe. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a wedding meltdown. It's a masterclass in quiet revenge. Let's begin. My sister wasn't always like this. Or maybe she was, and I just didn't want to see it. When we were kids, Skylar was magnetic. Even strangers at the grocery store would stop to compliment her curls or her laugh, or the way she sang Taylor Swift songs at full volume, like she was already performing for a sold-out crowd. I was quieter, the rule follower, the one who kept her secrets and fixed her messes without asking questions. I didn't mind it back then. Being needed made me feel valuable. It started small. Skylar borrowed my favorite hoodie and never returned it. She forgot to do her part of our chores, and I picked up the slack. She spilled juice on the carpet and told Mom I did it. I took the fall every time because that's what big brothers do, right? We protect. We absorb. We make things easier. The problem is when you spend your life absorbing people, stop noticing the weight you're carrying. After college, I got my first job in finance and started building a life that made sense to me. Logical, stable, controllable. Meanwhile, Skylar floated from one passion to the next. Interior design, then event planning, then marine biology for exactly 6 weeks. Eventually, she found her niche in the influencer world where aesthetic matters more than skill and followers are the currency. And to her credit, she got good at it. Her videos were slick, her voiceovers confident, her image curated to perfection. She built a lifestyle brand that looked effortless: lavender lattes, silk robes, skincare fridges. Every frame said I have my life together. What the videos didn't show, the unpaid credit cards, the calls to me when rent was late, the Venmo requests labeled emergency, which somehow always meant spa retreats, facial rollers, or business class flights for the brand. At first, I enabled it because I thought I was helping. I told myself she's just trying to get on her feet. Then it became habit. Then it became expected. And then it became invisible. She never asked if it was okay. She just assumed I'd say yes. And I did. Every time. Our mom, Margaret, was no help. If anything, she reinforced it. She was a literature professor for 30 years and a devout believer in potential. Skylar, in her eyes, was brilliant, creative, misunderstood. I, on the other hand, was practical. That was the word she always used. Not kind, not generous. Practical. Like I was a well-made desk, useful, silent, dependable. I remember one night a few years ago, Skylar called in tears. Her apartment lease was up and she couldn't afford a new place in LA. I wired her 3 months' rent without hesitation. When I told Mom later, hoping for maybe some recognition, she smiled and said, "That's what family does." No thank you. No surprise. Just confirmation that I had done my duty. So when Skylar got engaged to a guy named Trevor, an equally polished finance bro with a jawline you could use to slice prosciutto, I wasn't shocked when she turned the wedding into a full-blown brand launch. Hashtags, sponsorships, partnership with a luxury candle company, a custom Spotify playlist curated by emotional theme. She called it Hatch Sky and Trev's Forever. She said she wasn't just planning a wedding, she was designing an experience. Naturally, I was assigned a role. Not groomsman, not toast giver, not even guest of honor. No, I was the financial point of contact. That was the term she used in her vendor group emails. I wasn't even asked. I was just CE'd. I helped review catering contracts, paid the deposits, confirmed floral arrangements, and tracked delivery schedules while Skylar posted flat lays of perfume samples on TikTok with captions like, "Wedding prep essentials." She had 200,000 followers and growing. I had a Google Doc full of payment deadlines. She told me once that I was so good at this stuff. I almost believed that was a compliment. It wasn't. It was her way of outsourcing the boring parts to someone she assumed would never say no. The tipping point wasn't the registry. Not really. That was just the match. The fuel had been building for years. Because every quiet sacrifice I made taught them the same lesson: Landon will fix it. Landon will pay for it. Landon doesn't need anything in return. What they didn't know was that I kept a record not out of spite, but out of habit. I archived every invoice, every transfer, every digital receipt. I told myself it was for tax purposes. But maybe deep down, I was building a case. Not for court, for myself. For the day I'd finally ask, is this love or just manipulation dressed as tradition? And then came the registry. No message, no gratitude, just a spreadsheet like a corporate invoice. And when I didn't fulfill every line item, they didn't call me to ask why. They didn't offer to cover the rest. They didn't ask if I was okay. They just sent messages that made one thing crystal clear: I wasn't invited. Not unless I paid full price. I spent that night on the edge of my bed staring at my phone. My bank account showed 5 new luxury purchases. My sister's message said I hadn't done enough. My mom's said she deserved more. I felt like a vending machine that had finally run out of snacks. And all anyone noticed was that it stopped working. People say blood is thicker than water, but they forget the rest of that phrase. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning chosen loyalty matters more than biological ties. That night, I finally understood it. I had been loyal, to a fault, to the point where I had erased myself in service of their comfort. So I made a decision, not out of anger, not for revenge, for clarity. Because if I didn't step back now, I never would. If I didn't show them what boundaries looked like, they'd keep building their lives on top of me like I was bedrock. And eventually, I'd crack. They told me not to come, fine. But I wasn't going to let them pretend I never existed. If they wanted to erase me from the photos, I'd erase myself from the foundation. But not before pulling back every invisible support they'd taken for granted. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. The silence was over. It was time to speak in the only language they seemed to understand: logistics and balance do. The thing about being the responsible one is no one ever checks how close you are to breaking. They assume your silence is strength, not surrender. They think because you say yes once, you'll say yes forever. That's how it went in the weeks leading up to the wedding. Every day was another ask, another invoice, another favor repackaged as, can you just... It started with the vendors. Skylar was too swamped with content strategy to deal with logistics, so I became the de facto wedding coordinator. She looped me into every thread: emails from caterers, decorators, lighting crews, even the string quartet. Not as a guest, as the primary point of contact. One florist even called me Mr. Rivers, the wedding host. I corrected her. She laughed and said, "You're the only one answering emails." I was waking up to spreadsheets, expense trackers, and voice memos from Skylar that were longer than podcast episodes. "Hey, can you follow up with the venue again? They're being slow, and I need it locked in by Friday. Also, did the espresso machine get delivered yet? I'm filming the unboxing next week." Let me repeat that. She wanted to unbox her wedding gifts on camera. Before the wedding. Gifts she didn't buy. Gifts she assigned to people. Gifts she thought she was entitled to open like a PR haul. At first, I convinced myself it was harmless. She was excited. She was building her brand. But the more I watched her TikToks, the more uncomfortable I felt. There she was, talking about her self-funded dream wedding, sipping rosé from a crystal glass I bought, thanking her followers for being part of this journey. No mention of me. No sign of the dozens of hours I spent untangling contract terms or coordinating the arrival times for vendors. She never even tagged me. Then came the seating chart. She asked me to handle it because you're more organized and I'm vibing with too many options right now. That's a real sentence, she said. I opened the chart and noticed something strange. My name wasn't there. Everyone else, cousins, ex-roommates, former interns from a PR firm she worked at for 6 weeks, had a spot. But me, nothing. When I asked, she brushed it off. "Oh, I thought you'd be like, floating, helping with stuff not really seated. As if I were an event staffer, not her brother." Mom defended her, of course. "Don't take it personally, Landon. She's just overwhelmed. Big days come with big pressure." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just nodded and said, "Sure." That was always the word I used, sure. It was easier than explaining the ache in my chest that came with being invisible. Meanwhile, Trevor, her fiancé, barely spoke to me. Every time I tried to talk logistics, he'd say Skylar's got it, and then post another gym selfie captioned grind mode. The man had more protein shakes than actual opinions. But things escalated when the venue contract hit my inbox. She forwarded it with the subject line, "Can you glance at this?" Legalese makes me dizzy. The PDF had my name listed as secondary signer right under Trevor's. Not Skylar, me. I called her. "Why am I listed as financially liable on the venue?" She replied, "It's just a formality. You're the one who's been talking to them anyway." And honestly, your credit score is way better than ours. She said it like I should be proud. Like being a financial backup plan was a compliment. I wanted to say no. I wanted to delete the file and block her number. But instead, I reviewed the terms, caught a penalty clause no one else noticed, negotiated a better deal, and signed. Later that night, I sat in the dark and asked myself a question I'd never dared ask before: if I disappeared tomorrow, would they miss me or just miss what I do for them? The answer wasn't comforting. Skylar's demands grew bolder. She sent out a final guest list, 200 names, and CC'd me again with, "Can you confirm RSVP catering counts? You're better at spreadsheets." Then casually, "Also, I put the deposit on your card for now. We'll Venmo you later." She never did. A week before the wedding, she texted me a photo of a designer clutch with the caption, "This is the one. You know what to do. No please. No offer to split it." Just an assumption that I'd swipe my card again, like always. That night, Jordan came over again. We sat in silence on my balcony. He looked at me and asked, "How long are you going to let them do this to you?" I didn't answer. I didn't have one. I wasn't even sure I knew what this was anymore. It had become so normalized, so routine, that I couldn't tell where helping ended and being exploited began. Then came the final blow, the registry spreadsheet. That wasn't just a list. That was a declaration. A silent message written in Arial bold. "You are not a guest. You are a sponsor. And you're only welcome if you pay your dues." So I selected 5 items. I ordered them, paid in full, even added a note: "Hope this brings you joy. Landon." I wasn't trying to be petty. I was trying to convince myself that this was love. That love meant sacrifice. That family meant carrying the load. But the next day the text came. "You skipped 2. Don't show up." No joke, no clarification, just cold command. Then Mom followed up in the group chat. "She deserves more. It's her big day." I stared at those messages for a long time. Not in disbelief, in recognition. This wasn't new. It had always been like this. I had just stopped pretending otherwise. I didn't reply with rage. I didn't try to explain. I just responded with one word: understood. Then I opened my laptop, pulled up every vendor folder, every contract, every transaction, and I made a different kind of list. Not of gifts, but of the quiet ways I'd held this whole thing together. The espresso machine ordered under my account. The floral vendor booked with my email. The caterer deposit on my card. Rentals reserved in my name. The entire wedding timeline saved in a folder on my Google Drive titled Skylar's Big Day. And they told me not to come. They wanted a show. So I gave them one. Just not the kind they had planned. I didn't sleep much that night. Not out of anger. Anger burns fast and loud. This was something quieter, like a hollow hum in my chest. I kept replaying the messages over and over in my head. "You skipped 2. Don't show up." Followed by Mom's, "She deserves more." It wasn't just the words. It was the ease with which they said them. Like I wasn't even a person, just a utility that had run out of credit. Around 2 a.m., I got up and made coffee. The expensive kind Skylar always insisted I keep around for when she visited the glittery vanilla hazelnut blend she once called aesthetic in liquid form. I hated it, but I brewed it anyway. Maybe as a way to mark the end of something. Maybe to remind myself how often I swallowed bitterness just to keep the peace. By 2:30, I was staring at my laptop screen, pulling up folder after folder, vendors, invoices, contracts. It wasn't a plan yet. It was just inventory. A slow, steady reminder of just how many threads of this wedding were tied to me. The florals reserved under my email. The venue I was the co-signer. The espresso machine she planned to unbox for her 250K followers, charged to my account. The caterer. Paid for 6 weeks ago by me, full deposit with final payment due on the wedding day. And because she told me not to come, I wouldn't. But she had no idea that by disinviting me, she had unknowingly revoked the one thing she couldn't fake for her followers' financial backing. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't curse or send angry texts. I just started drafting emails. 1. To the caterer. Effective immediately. Please suspend services. The prior payment was made under my account and has been rescinded due to unauthorized usage of financial credentials. I attached a screenshot of the transfer reversal. I CC'd the event coordinator and filed the confirmation in a folder I titled simply Control. Next came the florist, then the decor rental company, then the mobile bartending team. Each message short, respectful, legal sounding. I wasn't being cruel. I was being accurate. They had used my name, my credit, my signature. I had the right to revoke it. At 4 a.m., I sent the final message. Then I sat on my balcony watching the first hints of sunrise break over Austin's skyline. For the first time in years, my chest felt light, not happy, just honest. When I finally got up to shower, I looked in the mirror and saw someone I hadn't seen in a long time. A man who didn't owe anyone an apology for setting a boundary. A man who didn't have to prove his love with transactions. Mike, my best friend since high school, came by later that morning. He took one look at my face and asked, "You okay?" I handed him a coffee. "Skylar sent me a bill for her wedding," I said, then told me not to come. Mike paused, nodded, then quietly said, "What did you do?" I sipped my coffee. I RSVP'd with receipts. He let out a low whistle, sat back in the chair, and said, "Dude, that's not revenge, that's art." We didn't laugh. Not yet. The weight was still too fresh. But in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't alone. Someone saw what I had carried. Someone understood that kindness has a breaking point, and mine had arrived. By noon, I had received confirmation from every vendor. Contracts voided, refunds in process, services suspended. Every detail of Skylar's wedding day, the curated production she had turned into content, was now structurally unstable. Not because I sabotaged it, because she built it on a foundation she never respected me. I didn't announce what I'd done. I didn't post online. I didn't warn anyone. I simply followed her instructions. She told me not to come, so I didn't. But what I left behind was silence. A silence that echoed louder than any speech I could have made. Because I wasn't just her brother anymore. I was the system she leaned on. And systems, when they go offline, tend to create chaos in ways no one anticipates. Around 1:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Skylar, what did you do?" No punctuation, just panic. Mom chimed in minutes later. "The florist says they never got paid. What's going on with the shrimp?" I waited. I let them sit with the confusion. Then I opened the same family group chat where they'd told me I wasn't welcome. And I sent a series of screenshots, revoked payment receipts, canceled bookings, contract voids, then just one word: understood. Because that's all I ever said. All they ever left me room to say. I leaned back, letting the noise fade. Somewhere across town, a wedding was unraveling. Guests were arriving to folding chairs. The violinist was gone. The shrimp was thawing in a supplier's freezer. And Skylar was realizing in real time what happens when your support system grows a spine. But here's the thing. They never expected I didn't want to ruin her day. I didn't want to humiliate her. I wanted peace. And peace for me meant stepping off the stage I never auditioned for. They treated me like a background character in their story. So I did the one thing background characters aren't supposed to do. I exited. Not quietly, not loudly, just deliberately. I closed the laptop, refilled my cup, and sat on the balcony while the city hummed below. No regrets, no second guessing. Just sunlight and the strange calm that comes from reclaiming your voice, not with noise, but with absence. They asked me for everything. I finally gave them nothing. And in doing so, I gave myself something I hadn't had in years: freedom. The morning of the wedding came without drama on my end. No frantic texts, no calls asking where I was. Just stillness. A silence so clean it almost sang. I woke up early out of habit, but didn't rush anywhere. I made coffee, my own blend this time, not the vanilla nightmare Skylar always demanded, and sat out on the balcony with the breeze on my face and a cappuccino in hand. 9:00 a.m. My calendar buzzed. Skylar's wedding, 1:30 p.m. I smiled. Not because I was bitter, because I was finally free of pretending. For years, I'd been the emotional airbag of this family, absorbing impact so they could keep moving forward without injury. But today, there were no more airbags. Just sharp corners and the consequences of entitlement. By 9:15, the emails had already been opened. My phone pinged with a notification from the event management system. Final service access denied. Payment authorization revoked. The automated systems were doing their job now. Quiet, precise, unapologetic, like me. At 10:00 a.m., I was still on the balcony when my phone buzzed again. "Ashley, cousin, hey, did you cancel the florist? There's nothing here." I didn't reply. I wasn't the coordinator anymore. They made that clear. By 10:41, the digital meltdown had begun. "Skylar, what did you do? Mom group chat caterer isn't unloading. They said something about unpaid balances." "Skylar." Did you cancel stuff? Are you insane? Do you know how this makes us look? I took a slow sip of my coffee, then opened the family group chat. The same thread where they had told me I wasn't welcome. The same thread where Skylar's spreadsheet of luxury gifts first arrived. I attached 4 screenshots, cancellation emails, contract termination notices, and revoked payment receipts. Then I typed just one word: understood. Not a threat, not a meltdown, a mirror. Let them stare into it. By 11:15 a.m., the venue staff had started texting me, not Skylar. Wedding planner. Hi, Landon. I was told you're the financial contact. The caterers are refusing to proceed without final payment. Also, the string quartet just left. Bride is panicking. I replied, has the balance been paid? She answered quietly, no. I wrote, then there's nothing to discuss. Then hung up. From what I've gathered later, and yes, this part made it to TikTok, things snowballed fast. The guests started arriving around 11:30. Skylar's followers, her curated tribe of bridesmaids and Instagram moms, showed up in carefully styled dresses ready for an elegant afternoon wedding. Instead, they found folding chairs in a dry lawn, no welcome drinks, and an outdoor setup that looked less like a wedding and more like an abandoned showroom. Someone, maybe Skylar's maid of honor, had scrawled on a piece of cardboard and taped it to the front gate. Guests will be seated once balance is cleared. I know this not because anyone told me. I know this because Mike sent me a picture from one of the TikTok reels blowing up that afternoon. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years had posted a video titled "Bride Melts Down After Vendors Ghost Her Wedding." It was raw, shaky, unfiltered. You could see Skylar screaming at someone in a headset while Grandma sat fanning herself in 93-degree heat, clutching a lukewarm bottle of water from a plastic cooler. At 1:00 p.m., the bride's big moment was trending on social media. The hashtag @VanishingVendors hit 50K views in under an hour. At 1:26, Mike called, "You're going viral." I raised an eyebrow. How bad? He laughed under his breath. Let's just say, they're serving gas station cupcakes. Someone brought a 6-pack of Miller Lite and the DJ left after 15 minutes. The violinist got cussed out by Trevor and walked off mid-song. I exhaled, not out of satisfaction, but out of something deeper. Closure. This wasn't revenge, it was gravity. I wasn't trying to destroy anything, I just stopped propping it up. At 1:35 p.m., a voicemail came in from Mom. You always have to be the center of attention. You couldn't give her this one day, she's your sister. You were supposed to give her everything. She would have done the same for you. I paused the voicemail there. Because she wouldn't have. Skylar never showed up when I needed anything. When I had back surgery and couldn't walk for weeks, she didn't bring soup. Or even call. When I had my first panic attack after taking out a second mortgage to cover Mom's repairs radio silence, everything I gave flowed one direction. They called it family. But family without reciprocity isn't loyalty. It's emotional debt. By 2:00 p.m., a new message came in. Skylar, I hope you're proud of yourself. And I was. Not because it fell apart, but because I finally stopped carrying it. I stopped letting them siphon off my life in the name of obligation. And just when I thought that was the end of it, the next morning brought a new gift. A reel, accidentally posted by the wedding photographer's assistant. Unedited, unfiltered. It showed the gift table, if you could call it that. A single plastic table with 2 boxes on it, one already torn open. Skylar's voice was in the background, rising with disbelief. Where's the rest? Where's the baccarat set, the bar? The chairs. Trevor was on the phone whispering to someone like he was negotiating a hostage situation. The planner kept repeating, this wasn't the agreement. This wasn't the agreement. The clip cut to black. No overlay, no hashtags, no excuses. It was never meant to go public. But once it did, it couldn't be unseen. Her wedding, the one she wanted to trend, did trend. Just not for the reasons she'd hoped. A cautionary tale wrapped in crystal expectations and glitter-coated entitlement. I closed the video, smiled to myself, and took another sip of coffee. They wanted luxury. I gave them reality. They wanted a perfect narrative. I gave them a pause button. They wanted a show. I gave them silence. The day after the wedding felt strangely quiet. Not just outside, but inside me. There was no guilt, no sadness, just a calm sort of clarity, like my body had finally stopped holding its breath after a decade. I didn't wake up to chaos. No texts, no voicemails, just morning light stretching across the hardwood floor and the rich smell of dark roast drifting from the kitchen. I poured myself a cup real coffee, strong, no glitter, and sat by the window like I always do. I opened my email just out of habit, and there it was. Subject yesterday, from Mr. Dunning. My 11th grade English teacher. I hadn't spoken to him in over 15 years. He must have still been on the family mailing list from back when Skylar invited literally everyone she'd ever met to boost her head count. I don't know what happened, he wrote, but I've never seen a bride scream about unpaid shrimp while guests sat on plastic chairs. I'm sorry you went through that. I'm proud of you. I stared at the screen for a long time. That's the thing about validation. It always hits harder when it's unexpected. Not from the people who should say it, but from the ones who recognize the quiet strength in choosing peace over performance. I hadn't planned to be seen. But somehow in the wreckage of Skylar's curated catastrophe, someone noticed. A second email pinged in. David, my cousin, I hadn't talked to since 2020. Subject, did you really pull the plug? No emojis, no sarcasm, just curiosity. Then came the messages. Ashley, she had to sell her Lewis bag. Mom Skylar says she's traumatized. Skylar, you embarrassed her. You blacklisted the wedding. You made a mockery of her biggest day. It was incredible how quickly the narrative had shifted. I was no longer the quiet older brother who covered everyone's messes. I had become the villain in a story where all I did was stop paying. And maybe that's what scared them the most, not that I lashed out, but that I withdrew. Not just the money, but myself. It didn't matter that I had paid for years of tuition or for Mom's car when she lost her job or for Skylar's rent while she launched her third failed startup. That wasn't part of the script anymore. In this version, I was selfish, cold, petty, because I finally said no. At first, I wanted to respond, wanted to remind them, wanted to list every silent sacrifice, every overdraft I'd covered without complaint. But what would that do? They weren't listening. They were mourning the loss of their ATM. And ATMs don't write back. Instead, I opened the voicemail Mom had left the day before. I played it on speaker while I folded laundry. You could have just sucked it up. It was one day, and you had to make it about you. I paused it there. I already knew the rest. That line was the most honest part anyway. You had to make it about you, as if that were a crime. As if the absence of my compliance was a spotlight. Around noon, my phone rang again. This time the caller ID made me freeze. Dad. Not Mom and Dad, just him. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. He'd moved to Arizona after the divorce, got remarried, got into hiking and weird green juice. We exchanged birthday texts. That was about it. I picked up. Hey, he said after a short pause. You got a minute? Sure. I heard about what happened, he said. Your mom's been vocal. I didn't say anything. I'm not calling to fix anything, he added. Just wanted to say it's about time someone stood up. I blinked. Thought I'd misheard. What? You always carried them, he said. And I let it happen. I shouldn't have, but I'm proud of you. That silence hit harder than any scream. I didn't know what to say. For years, I'd told myself he left because he didn't care. But maybe he just didn't have the strength to stay in a system where love was measured in dollars and emotional leverage. Maybe we both broke just in different ways. Thanks, I finally said. That means more than you know. We didn't talk long after that, but something shifted. And when I hung up, I opened the group chat again, the one where Skylar had dropped her gift registry like a corporate memo. It was flooded. You made a scene when we needed unity. Do you feel better now? You're supposed to give, not take. We're family. What happened to love? Not a single apology. Not one sentence of accountability. Just noise. Just the sound of people who've mistaken dependency for affection and guilt for love. I scrolled back up. Saw Skylar's original message again. You missed too. Don't show up. I long pressed the chat, clicked mute, then archive. Not delete. Not yet. Some lessons deserve to be remembered. Later that evening, an envelope slid under my apartment door. No stamp. Just glitter on the seal and a faint trace of Skylar's favorite perfume, Maison Francis Kurkji, and Baccarat Rouge 540. She used to douse wedding invites with it so they'd feel expensive. It made me sneeze. Inside the envelope was a postcard. A thank you note. Gold foil script. Filtered photo of Skylar and her husband spinning on the dance floor, cropped so tight you couldn't see the empty chairs or the chaos behind them. Thank you for being part of our special day. We hope to see you again soon. I looked at the bottom, scrolled through the list of names. Mine wasn't there. Just a gap. A literal blank space where my name should have been. As if someone had pressed delete and moved on. I laughed, not bitterly, not sadly, just cleanly. Because that blank space told me more than any argument ever could. They hadn't just disinvited me from the wedding. They had erased me from the story. And finally, I was okay with that. 3 weeks later, I found myself in a quiet cafe in Lisbon. Sunlight playing off the rim of my coffee cup like it had nothing better to do. No noise, no expectations. Just the gentle clink of porcelain, the distant hum of conversation in Portuguese, and the strange stillness that comes after chaos when your nervous system finally realizes the war is over. I hadn't told anyone I was leaving, not even Mike. I just booked a one-way flight, grabbed my backpack, and let the rest figure itself out. My lease was ending anyway. Utilities canceled, storage booked. That life, the one where I answered every 3 a.m. crisis call, covered every overdraft, smiled through every manipulation, that version of me didn't make the flight. What did? A man who finally chose himself. I sat by the window, no plans, just a notepad, a good pen, and a strong espresso. I wasn't writing yet, just thinking, letting my mind wander without obligation. And then my phone buzzed. It was from the old family group chat, now renamed Family First, like someone was desperately trying to rebrand dysfunction. The messages came in waves. Ashley had to sell her designer bag. Skylar says you ruined her wedding. They're saying you never really loved her. She told people you blacklisted the entire event. Then a photo. Skylar on a friend's couch, crying, surrounded by half-eaten cake and untouched gift bags. The caption, grateful for real ones. The irony. They weren't mad because I embarrassed them. They were mad because I exposed what had always been true, that love in their eyes was transactional. That giving wasn't enough unless it was limitless. And that setting boundaries meant betrayal. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the thread again. I just blocked the number and turned my phone off. Let them write their story. Let them cast me as the villain, the ungrateful one, the black sheep. Because sometimes disappearing is louder than screaming. Sometimes the absence of chaos is what finally makes people hear the truth. A few days later, a letter arrived forwarded from my old apartment. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a screenshot of Skylar's original wedding registry, the one with the 7 luxury items, 2 boxes unchecked. Next to them, in my own handwriting from weeks ago, I'd scribbled a small note. I'd almost forgotten I wrote it. Don't confuse obligation with love. I stared at that sentence for a long time. It felt heavier now, truer, because for years I'd thought that was what family meant, showing up, paying up, shutting up. That saying no was selfish. That choosing peace was disloyal. But now I realize it's not disloyal to protect your spirit. It's not selfish to stop bleeding for people who treat your kindness like a given. And it's definitely not unloving to walk away from relationships where love is earned, not given. Let me say that again, love doesn't require proof of purchase. It took me a decade to unlearn that, to see how deep that pattern ran. How it wasn't just about Skylar or mom or the wedding. It was about how I let them shape me into a role I never auditioned for. The dependable one, the fixer, the bank, the ghost of a person who once had needs but silenced them so everyone else could speak louder. But here's the thing they never expected: when you take everything from someone who never asked for recognition the one time they walk away, it feels like an earthquake, not because of anger, but because of absence. Because they never realized how much they leaned on you until the weight is gone. In Lisbon, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Stillness. Not boredom, not loneliness, just presence. The kind where you finally feel like you belong to yourself again. Where the only voice you answer to is your own. Where your worth isn't measured by how much you give, but by how deeply you live. And yes, I still wonder sometimes. Was it strength, or did I just give up? Did I finally draw a boundary, or did I abandon my family? But then I remember that love without respect is just obligation in disguise. That being the bigger person doesn't mean making yourself small. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away before you become someone you no longer recognize. And maybe, just maybe, healing looks like sipping coffee on a quiet street in Lisbon with no one asking you for anything. So now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been the one who always says yes? The one who answers every call even when you're drowning? The one who's expected to fix everything, fund everything, be everything? If you have, then you know exactly how heavy that armor gets. And you also know how terrifying it is to finally take it off. But here's the truth. They don't tell you when you stop being what they need, you find out who they really are. Some will lash out. Some will rewrite history. Some will pretend you never existed. That's okay, because you'll still be there. Whole, awake, finally breathing in a life that feels like yours again. I didn't ruin Skylar's wedding. She ruined the relationship the moment she turned love into a spreadsheet. The moment she saw me not as a brother, but as a resource. I just stopped playing the part. And that's the part they couldn't handle. She wanted a show. I gave her the silence that follows when the curtain falls. She wanted a Rolex. I gave her a reminder. She wanted a car. I gave her control. She wanted to trend. I gave her the truth. But what I gave myself was something far rarer: peace. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever reached your breaking point? Have you ever stopped mid-sentence and realized, this isn't love? It's obligation dressed up in birthday candles and family photos. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, it's living well, fully, quietly, without needing permission. If this story made you feel something, anger, relief, maybe just the need to sit quietly with your own story, then like, comment, and subscribe. We tell real stories here. Stories about boundaries, about strength, about what it means to choose yourself after years of choosing others. And if you're still carrying the weight of being the strong one, I hope this is your sign to set it down. Because you deserve peace too.